Hey, money healers. This is Rachel Duncan, certified financial therapist and art therapist, and you're listening to the Money Healing Club podcast. So there's a topic that comes up with almost every client and club member I work with, especially around changing their impulse spending habits, and that is their relationship with social media. How social media is costing time, very real dollars, and many other costs that are sometimes hard to describe. And I found that healing our relationship with money is about rediscovering ourselves. And so sometimes we need to look at how social media is taking us away from ourselves. I felt this for a long time, but in this episode, we get to really unpack it with the expert critic out there on social media, Amelia Hruby. Amelia Hruby is a feminist writer, podcaster, and producer with a PhD in philosophy. She's the founder of Softer Sounds Podcast Studio and the host of Off the Grid, a podcast about leaving social media. Her new book is called Your Attention is Sacred, Except on Social Media, and it's coming out October 2025. You must go over to yourattentionissacred.com to snag your copy. Believe me, it's well worth it. Amelia was even on Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, last year to support Glennon in her decision to leave social media. So Amelia has given it so much research and so much thought. In this episode, Amelia and I talk about the real meaning of the word attention when we talk about attention economy. We talk about the push and pull of social media feeling both so good and so bad, and what Amelia is harvesting from her garden, from radishes to potatoes to so much more. And I promise it all relates. You'll just have to listen. The Money Healing Club podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. For help with your particular situation, please seek help from a licensed professional in mental health, tax, finance, and law. Now let's talk about what we don't usually say when we talk about social media with Amelia Hruby. Amelia, welcome to the Money Healing Club podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rachel. We have podcasted together and taught together and done so many things in other capacities that it just feels like coming home to hang out on your show.
Yeah. As I said when you came in the room, like, welcome to my sandbox. It's so great. I'm so excited to talk about this book to my community. So, okay, we're just going to start with the biggest question. This is about Amelia's book, by the way, you guys. Your attention is sacred, except on social media. So what is wrong with the attention economy? Paying attention to those two words, attention and economy, which you really pull apart. So
yes,
kick us off.
I'm so excited to talk about this. And I love talking about money. So I can't wait to get into the dollars and cents of it all. So what is wrong with the attention economy? I like to think about this on a few levels. One is what is the attention economy, right? Maybe some people use that term, but they don't actually really know what it means. And so I would define it as this concept that understands our attention as an economic resource. So it's our attention is limited in nature, and it is something that we can use to exchange to get what we want. Right? So this concept, this framework has really risen alongside social media and the internet, where we go online and we get cool free stuff, but we're actually paying for it with our attention. And so your attention becomes its own currency. It becomes a commodity. It's something that you can use to trade on the social media marketplace. And from that, you might get entertainment. You might get social capital if you grow a following. You might get power. We have watched social media influencers become incredibly powerful politicians, right? So the attention economy describes this world that we all live in, where attention is a currency that we're using online every day. That's the sort of rosy neutral way of describing it. Now, if you know anything about economics and currency and you know anything about our current world, we also live under a capitalist economic system. And so when we think about that in the context of the attention economy, our attention is being exploited and extracted on these apps, much like our labor is often exploited and extracted when we work for a wage. And so if you're on social media and you're giving an app your attention, Well, maybe you're getting entertained, but you're probably not making any money. And the owners of the app, they are making money. And so that's what I mean by extraction there. Is like someone else is making money when you are on a social media app. And so the attention economy to me like just describes all of that. And what is wrong with that is extraction, exploitation, is the increased surveillance that has happened as social media companies need more and more and more data to keep making money off of our use of their platforms, right? Like they make money by selling our attention and our data to advertisers. So they just need more and more data and more attention. And it's left us in this place where it's like we all feel like we have no focus, we're totally distracted, our attention is fractured, and we can't even care about the things we care about anymore.
And I add to this, I was thinking about this as I was reading your book, also like the echo chamber of the algorithm that like, oh, I am not exposed to some things or I'm not being shown some things that really I ought to know about the world or some maybe perspectives that do go against my own. Generally not being fed that. And I'm also wondering that must be adding to the segmentation and the conflicts that we're feeling because I think when we're in these platforms, it's all like. It's, oh, gosh, there's so many people that think like me. And that's lovely to meet people and see things that jive with you. Totally. But we're very explicitly not being fed anything that causes discomfort. And so that now we also have, swaths of society and culture that can't sit with the discomfort of disagreeing with somebody. Because we all have to be with like. Do you think that's in there too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is maybe one of the like downstream effects of the attention economy is that like
Yeah.
you're already pulling in algorithms, right? So on social media apps, each of them has their own proprietary algorithm that is designed to keep us on the app, to keep our attention there so they can keep making money, right? Keep selling ads, keep getting us to buy stuff. They make money off of that. And so these algorithms have figured out, as we've learned from documentaries like The Social Dilemma or books like Jaron Laniер's Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Account Right Now. People who have been inside these companies building the algorithms have come outside of them and said they are designed to keep you on the app. And what the algorithms have learned through their own learning models is that there are different ways to keep us on apps. And so for many people, it is that sort of like sameness that cultivates a sense of belonging and safety, and you want more of it. And they keep giving you those dopamine hits, and that feels really good. I think there's also the flip side of that where we see like rage bait and we see some people
Yeah, true.
be served up really inflammatory content, and that's what engages them. I often like to say, like, if you're conflict avoidant, you might have like a really cute little nice version of the internet.
I think that's what I'm saying. I have such mine's like comedians and cats. That's like my whole feed because I
Yes,
do not like conflict.
100%. I mean, mine used to be the same way when I was on social media. So I definitely think that's a part of like the economic side of the attention economy is how these algorithms function and how they continue to pull on and make money from our attention. The thing I really try to say in the book, like I try to explain all of that. And I try to point out, like, there are so many impacts that the attention economy has on our lives, like you're saying, increased echo chambers, a decreased ability to handle disagreement and conflict together, while we're also seeing an increase in national and global conflicts around the world, some of which can be directly tied to social media in those countries. So, in our lifetimes, we've seen the Cambridge Analytica scandal that helped get a president elected. We've seen what happened with the genocide in Myanmar that was very much fueled by ads being run on Facebook that were theoretically against the terms of service, but really stoked racial tensions in the country and led to these horrible events. And so they're very real consequences,
Very real.
very real reasons the attention economy as it functions on social media is bad. But the philosopher in me, when I wrote this book, I was like, okay, a lot of people have made that argument, but I want to actually point to this, like, what I see as like a core flaw in the whole premise of the attention economy. That is that I don't think attention is an economic resource. I don't
Yeah.
think attention is a limited resource. So when people talk about the attention economy, as I mentioned before, like they're trying to explain how we have a scarce amount of attention and economics is how we figure out scarcity and distribute scarce resources. So, like, we got to figure this out with the attention economy. But I don't think attention is scarce. And so I think there's a sort of fundamental breakdown at the very like heart of this concept that really bugs me. So I had to write a
Yeah.
book about it because let me let you interject there if you
No,
want.
can I share?
Please.
I underlined when you started it out. I always started a paper with this. Let's get into the etymology. I'm like, I always start a paper with etymology. That's like my go-to crutch. So let's break down. Could you break down for us? Because I think this is so beautiful. The etymology of the word attention.
Yeah, let me read it from the book
Let's
because I'll
read
get it
it.
wrong if I.
Would you? Yes. Reference yourself.
Okay, so
It's page 7.
it is
Everyone,
page
page
7.
7. Open your books to page 7. Professor Hruby is going to be
Yes, my
reading.
former life as a professor. Um, so the word attention comes from the French word attendre, which means to stretch toward. So within the word attention, I think, like from the etymology of this word, it's about how we stretch toward the world. And to me, that is not a scarce gesture. That's like an infinite gesture. And part of the way I make that claim in the book is like, yes, our lives are limited by time, right? Like we are mortal beings, but we can't count how many times we're going to stretch toward the world in one lifetime, right? It's like an uncountable number, which is one way of saying it's infinite. It's not finite. It's not scarce. It's so much I can't count it. Like my attention is so vast. Everyone listening to this, like your attention is so vast. It's literally how you stretch toward the world, how you experience it, and how you notice the things that you notice or don't notice the things that you don't notice. And so I really wanted to start there in the book so I could set up this sort of premise I'm trying to describe here of how, like, if we don't accept that our attention is scarce, if we believe it is infinite and expansive, the same way that, relationships are infinite and expansive or love is infinite and expansive, like, if we believe that, then we don't have to buy in to the idea that attention is a scarce economic resource. And if we don't buy into that, then we don't have to buy into the whole concept of the attention economy. We can start to relate to our attention differently. We can start to notice and really feel when it's being extracted or manipulated. And we can really reshape our relationship to the world, I think. So, yeah, our opening question, what's wrong with the attention economy? Well, I think it's a good way of describing how attention is commodified on social media, but it's come to be this thing everyone takes as a fact. And I just don't think it is. Like the world doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
function this way. And it's actually incorrect to think of attention this way.
And I think you're right. And I think the efforts to put numbers to it, oh, number of followers, hours of watching, da da da, like also are pretty meaningless, right?
Yes.
Like, and what do attention versus audience? Those are different things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking like it made me think of like the different ways we experience time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think the ancient Greeks really knew that we had two experiences of time. We had Chronos and Kairos,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like Chronos, sure, the number of days in a year, and there are quantifiable things, but like, wow, that is actually not our lived experience if you weren't counting the days. Depending on your level of attention or what you were doing, we experience time really differently. It is very fluid and expansive and dynamic. And like 1 minute doing something versus another minute doing something else don't feel like a minute. A minute doesn't speak to it, And so I was thinking a lot of that, like, yeah, this is a very much more like a three-dimensional experience of attention. And I was also thinking of my work as a trained therapist, right? Like I sell attention. I sell very high quality, intense intention where, my hour with a client is not an hour with a client. Like it is on the calendar, but that is not my experience. I don't believe it's my client's experience. It's entering through this different threshold of connection that, like you said, it
Mm-hmm.
is expansive and infinite. it's not an hour. We can't think of it that way. So I was like really relating to like how we connect, right? Which has so much to do. That's actually, I think, what we mean with attention. And it could mean connecting to each other or connecting to, as you say at the end of your book, which I do want to talk about, some of these practices we can do to cultivate our attention. And it's a much more three-dimensional thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm still sitting with what you said about like how therapists are selling, like offering a specific type of like concentrated attention that's
Yeah.
given to the client. That's so interesting to me. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And it feels so true. So
Yeah.
much of what we need, want, desire, and get out of therapy is having, this trained person's full attention for our
That's it.
time together.
That's all it is. I thought when I went to grad school that I was, I'm going to learn how to give people advice. And I was wrong. It is stripping away everything so that you can be a fully attendant mirror.
Yeah.
And yeah, just how transformational that is. And it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the other thing coming up for me while you were sharing was like thinking about clock time and work time. And something I try to get at briefly in the book is just the way that, I think we really saw the seeds of our relationship to attention begin to shift when Charles Taylor put time on the factory clock. So we have this like Taylorist approach to industrialism where every single moment is minutely tracked for its productivity. And I think that that was a similar or like analogous move to what I'm seeing happen with attention on social media, right? Where it's like on these apps, they are tracking our attention with these like minute, clicks, likes. How long did you linger on this post on your phone? Like they're measuring everything, they're tracking everything, and they're sort of forcing attention onto these app metrics. And I think that is how time was forced onto the clock in the
Yes.
factory. And so it's a horrible process. I guess I'm struck in this moment by how deeply that has harmed so many of us and how it has alienated us from that like gorgeously human experience of losing track of time or being out of time or being together in time. And I think that social media then has also like taken us away from this idea that our attention is a way of stretching toward each other, being with each other, tending to each other. And the like jargony philosopher in me wants to call it like ontological violence. Like it's like that's really reshaped our experience of ourselves and our communities. And it's a really deep hurt and harm that I think
Yeah.
is happening to us.
Yeah.
And for me, like another reason I wrote this book is that I think that social media is something that many, if not most or all of us, could opt out of. And I wouldn't make that claim for something like work or industrial labor because that's required for so many people to have money to feed
Yeah.
themselves, clothe themselves, house themselves, right? So I wouldn't say it in that context. But I think with social media, I have yet to really find a use case where I'm like, oh, yeah, you could never leave. You may have to change
Yeah.
your life to leave. But I think all of us, but I think most of us could really quit using these apps
Yeah.
and take our attention back from them if we wanted to.
Well, I want to share a little, my personal story
Yeah.
is, we met about a year and a half ago and when I was on your podcast, and right around that time I was like, okay, I'm doing content creation. I had like joined a class. I was trying to get more comfortable on camera and I was having fun with it. It was a creative thing. And I felt right about the time I was getting comfortable with it, I left it and I took it off my phone. I do still have an account and I check it on the web, but it's really just an extension of my work email because I get client requests, I get wonderful collaborations. So I haven't left it completely, and I do little snippets of podcasts on it. But wow, it really changed. It was interesting just at the point I got comfortable with it, because what was happening was that, for me to get comfortable with it, I have to be really, really in it. I have to be consuming it. I have to know what people are doing. I have to know trends. And it was taking it was just taking my life away. I think I maybe have also like I have maybe an addictive personality, but it was just taking so much more than it was giving, even though I was enjoying the creative part. And when I took it off my phone, I don't re-download it. It was kind of this detoxifying experience, and I had that little fear about, will people find me? And people totally keep finding me. And then what it gave me. Now I read. It literally I read probably at least 2 books a month. And I look forward to bedtime. I look forward to winding down. I never have my phone plugged in my bedroom. And it really gave my attention back to the things that matter. And I think you speak about this so well, more in your Off the Grid podcast about being a business owner and like being afraid of leaving social media. But it actually helps you get back to the root of why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And there are actually so many ways to connect that are even more effective. Like my referrals, me being on other podcasts, is such a more effective way to spread my work than spending hours editing a reel. So I just wanted to share kind of like my process with this, and I'd love to know a little more about, could you share, there was a time where you were heavily in it.
Oh yeah.
And you left about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Was that right?
Yeah.
And what was that? There was a scale tipping time for you, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us more about that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So for listeners who are new to me, many years ago, I was a micro influencer. The whole period, I was so on Instagram. I shared different content pieces. I did a lot of work around selfies for radical self-love. I shared feminist affirmations. I did brand deals with companies like Parade and Bando. And, I was really trying to make a go of it on Instagram. And I think I never got more than like 3,000 followers, but I was able to crowdfund a podcast. I got a book deal. Like there was this way that I was growing a whole audience and platform on Instagram. I was all in. I spent so much time, so much money, so much energy on this app trying to get people's attention and share my creative work with them. And after years of doing that, sort of the culmination point became when my book came out. So I had self-published a book based on my Instagram series. Actually, it was called Feminist Mantra Monday, where I wrote these different affirmations every Monday and shared them. And it was kind of combining the more like spiritual practice I was learning with my like PhD studies in feminist theory. I was trying to bring them together in a more public way since it was so academic at school.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that. I compiled all of them into a book myself that I self-published. And then I was very lucky and I got a traditional publishing deal with Andrews McMeel. And when I signed that contract, everyone was like, you got to grow your social media following if you want this book to do well. So yeah. I hired a designer, I hired a strategist, I got brand photos, all these different things that I did and spent money and time on. And I put my all into launching the book on social media. And after I did that, I just kind of felt empty inside. Like it wasn't super successful and I didn't feel celebrated and connected. I just kind of felt tired and confused by what I was really doing. And the more time and energy I put into Instagram, the more I just felt my sort of like codependent habits or anxious attachment style really flare up. Like the more I like paid attention to the app, the more I checked the app, the more I took likes and comments to mean, I just deeply connected it to like my self-worth, my self-image. I didn't think I was good enough unless Instagram comments told me I was good enough, things like that. Or, I didn't think this picture was good enough unless I got more likes than this other picture or as many likes as somebody else's picture. And so I really got stuck in all of these loops over and over again. And at the start of 2021, I sat down and I wrote a list of my rules for Instagram that year. And these always sound familiar to people who struggle with social media, but it was things like, I will open the app on Monday morning and share these things and then delete it from my phone until Thursday. And then I'll open the app again and I'll engage with comments and I'll reply and I'll post some stories and I'll delete it again. And I only share about these things, but not these topics. And I'm turning comments off. Actually, I didn't put turning comments off on the rules because that didn't exist when I was leaving social media.
Yeah.
That's a revision that's happened in my brain.
You would have now.
Yeah. I would have now. It was probably something more like I won't respond to comments on posts or things like that. Like I set all these rules. And when I finished writing the list of rules, I reread it and I had this sort of breakthrough moment that the only other time in my life that I had needed that many rules around something was when I had been in toxic relationship that I had to go to plenty of therapy to work through and get out of. And that therapy helped me recognize my codependent patterns, my anxious attachment style, and kind of think through how can I change my behavior. And so something about making the list of rules just gave me this sudden clarity that I was doing it again. And I sort of had this conversation with myself where I was like, all right, you have three options. You can keep doing this and ignore the breakthrough you just had, which never works. You can keep doing this and go to all the therapy again and try to get over it. Or you could just stop doing it. You just get off of Instagram. Just leave social media.
Could you have learned from the example that it reminded you of? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, to put it even darkly, like it's a very much the addiction cycle, right? This is the story of you know, someone who's maybe trying to break an addiction with a substance use on their own without support would have those kinds of rules, you know, and it's a very fragmented way to try to heal. It's actually not, probably looking at that list is like, this is not like the way you heal something. This is the way you restrict something. This is the way you cut it apart in 1,000 pieces. It's actually not towards growth. I think one of these things, and like how I talk about with money, I think we feel really fragmented when it's like, is that how I do anything else in my life? Like, do I do all these like restrictive things with, you know, I don't know, like maybe exercise or, you know, another aspect of my life? Like, oh no, this is not how I do other things, or this is not how I do things anymore, which almost sounds like your insight. Like, oh, there's a ghosty shadow here, a part of myself that I worked hard to heal. And here it's come up in this other way. And such a, like, I think when we look at social media, when we look at also money and stuff like that, we're actually looking towards how can we experience more wholeness, knowing that these things can bring up this feeling of fragmentation. And the fragmentation is part of the experience to keep us in it because it's doing both things. It is the paper cut and the Band-Aid. Paper cut, Band-Aid, paper cut, Band-Aid. And when do we experience that I'm okay? I'm whole and I'm complete. You won't get it there, right? It's just paper cut, Band-Aid, paper cut, Band-Aid.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was my experience too. Like, I don't feel like I'm growing from this.
Yeah, and I think that there is at least limited research on this, probably more than limited by now. But like if we think about many of, you know, the whistleblowers who came out of Facebook or Meta and said that like Meta has data on how social media harms teen girls specifically, right? It promises them connection and beauty, and it offers them image after image of thinness and self-harm. And so it's not metaphorical what you're saying, right? Like like paper cut Band-Aid is so literal, and research has been done internally and externally from these companies to show that. And I think when I look to the research, it's primarily around like younger users. I'm like, tell me, how are all the millennials doing?
The millennial
For our self-image. But I have my own experience and the experience of all of the people I've spoken to on the podcast, like yourself, Rachel, to, you know, point me to the fact that, yes, it exactly like there's a certain promise of social media and it tends to offer us almost the opposite of that, dressed up as the thing we think we want. Yeah. And it shapes what we think that we want. So that's a big piece of it too. Yeah. Like I really, you know, I hear people talk about at this stage in social media, I'm not really meeting or finding people who feel like when they go on the apps, it's just a jolly good time and they're doing fine. And maybe 5 years ago I was. Like I had friends who were just casual users who were like, this is chill. Like I'm fine here. Like I can get on and off and I can be whole in this space.
Yeah.
But it has just twisted and tightened and warped, and the algorithms have just gotten more and more extractive as these companies try to make more and more money. And what's happening is they are injuring our attention, which makes it harder for them to get the attention from us. So they just have to tighten the screws. They have to paper cut deeper. They have to do more to get the same amount of attention. It's almost, I haven't thought about this analogy before, but we could make one to like the process of getting oil out of the earth, right? In the beginning, there were just these huge reserves, like oil literally spouted. Yeah.
Yes.
Gushed from the ground the same way our attention did. It was just, attention was everywhere. People were just hanging out. They were so excited to be online. They were like, give me something to look at, right?
Yeah.
But now the oil that's available that's being mined is so hard to get and it's lower quality. And the same thing can be said for our attention. It's so hard to get and it's lower quality. So it costs the companies more to get it from us. But because of capitalism, they refuse to make any less money. So they are going to these extremes. And I think that is why I say I don't know anyone who feels good on the apps anymore. Even when I talk to like my 75-year-old aunt who's on Facebook and like just trying to talk to her friends, even she's facing all these issues where she's like, someone impersonated her recently, made a whole account just pretending to be her, And so I just don't know any social media users who aren't encountering some really fundamental issue with their attention or their identity or their self-worth or their digital security on social media. It's just become such a harmful place.
Or even as fundamental as getting enough sleep or, the doom scrolling at night. So like, I did want to ask you about, a theme that comes up with folks in the Money Healing Club is, okay, I wake up in the morning, I've got a, pretty good plan. I've got a good buffer. I have a lot of spoons. If anyone knows spoon theory, right? I got my 10 spoons. I'm good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to cook at home today. And then the day goes on and you use up your spoons and you have a shit day at work. And then you're just like, I can't wrap my head around that. And you get your DoorDash and then you thought you would, I need to read that book or I want to write my novel. But you start doom scrolling. And then the products are offered to you and, you're buying a new sweater set or, a cruise. And, you wake up the next day like, what? Who was that last night? And so often, the social media comes in and the doom scrolling. We call it doom scrolling casually. Doom.
I know.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Like, what a word. And it has real direct financial implications. When I work with folks with impulse spending, that is a huge one. So it's like, okay, this isn't a willpower thing. When you enter into a space where your willpower is non-existent, and they found all these ways to work against it. And I think relationship with money has a lot to do with relationship to social media, at least for my audience. So I'm wondering how you could reflect on that. Like, did you notice a shift in your spending or your how you were as a consumer after being off of social media?
Oh, 100,000%. Let me tell you, you need to budget, quote unquote. You're trying to spend less money. If you leave social media, you'll just magically spend less money. It was like the only money hack I have to offer is get off of social media because you will see less stuff. So you will want less stuff and you will buy less stuff.
Okay. Not joking. I'm going to make my list of 100 ways to get better with money.
Leave social media is one of them. I say that from firsthand personal experience because, when I was on social media, when I was incredibly active, I would have told you, I would have said to you, social media doesn't impact what I buy. No way. Like I'm a smart consumer. I only buy stuff I really want. And I don't think I was lying to myself, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the subliminal levels that I was being influenced on. And I couldn't understand how being in the midst of all of these aspirational images made me want things that it didn't occur to me to want otherwise. Yes. So in the book, I have this sort of funny list of stuff that I bought because I saw it on social media. And, and it convinced me that there was a problem I had that I didn't have before I saw it. So it includes things like you know, so many candles, so many leggings. I own so many sets of Girlfriend Collective leggings because I saw them on social
I did
media.
that too. I did that too.
It also includes, let's see, like this doormat that I have at my house that I thought was cute and saw on somebody's stuff. And like I still have it. That's a fine purchase, I suppose. But like I didn't need to spend $80 at Anthropologie that day. It had never occurred to, I wasn't looking for a doormat. It just was cute. So I bought it. That like it's cute, so I bought it cycle came up over and over for me again. So I think kind of two things, in my experience, two things would happen on social media. I would just see things that I liked and I just buy them because it was so easy. There was no friction. It's like the Ariana Grande song. Like I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it, or whatever. Like very Seven Rings. Or being on social media would convince me that I had these problems, or honestly like these flaws that I could solve with a purchase. And these flaws were things that never would have occurred to me before, right? Yes. Like, you know, fabric of, I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, so many things to do with wrinkles.
Oh, I have an example. Right. Yeah, I'm acne prone, so yeah, I'm all up in there. And also I'm perimenopausal, so I'm getting also some good education, but like, oh my God, basically I'm going to die if I don't get a weighted vest, everybody. Oh. I'm panicking about, I have to have a weighted vest. I have to have it. And everyone's saying, and it's like pseudoscience and da-da-da. And there are these like quote doctors saying it. And I actually brought it up in a club call the other day. And we have one of our members is a nutritionist. And she was like, honey, I got you. And she sent me all this great information. Like there's no science behind it. And like, just like doing some workouts, like, you know, and it was so good to get, but I was in this tunnel of, I kind of knew I was being duped, but it felt so real. And if you take care of your health, you wear a weighted vest. And, you know, I was like, yeah, I was comparing products. I was all the way down the line. And then I'm so glad I paused. I brought it up with someone who knows this shit. And, you know, and I don't know, I still might buy it, but it was, oh yeah. And I didn't realize, I thought I was taking care of myself by buying that. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is why I own hypoallergenic pillows. I'm like, I was told that was a problem. When in fact, actually, I just needed to wash my pillows more often.
Just wash your pillows more. I mean, basically, it's like, I take more walks and lift weights is like, what's like the boring shit we already know. Yeah.
So, and this is so human, right? Like maybe we have a problem, whether that be perimenopause or allergies or, you know, with my doormat, like my house isn't quite cute enough, whatever the problem is. And we're presented with this purchase that will just solve it for us.
Yes.
But so often it doesn't. I mean, maybe in the doormat example, it just solved it for me. But if you bought the weighted vest, you still have to go on all the walks. You still got to wear it around. You still have to do it, right? Like I bought the pillows, but they just didn't do anything. That was just like actually a false promise, I think, for me at least. So I think that social media is, you know, something that Jaron Lanier says in his book is that if we are using social media, we are consenting to hyper personalized advertising every second we are on the apps. Yes. And so no wonder, especially at the end of the day, that we are not quote unquote strong enough, heavy quotes there, to resist hyper personalized advertising based on exactly the problem you've been thinking about that day, providing exactly the solution that should resolve it for exactly the price that you can pay and after pay payments for the next 10 years, right? Like it's all right there. And it feels so easeful after everything has been so hard. So of course we're like consent. Of course we're just opting into that. It's much easier than going for the walks or washing the pillows, right? Like I would much rather press purchase than go put my pillows in the wash. And I still feel that way sometimes.
And the real harm is then, if you spend too much money, that is a you problem.
Yes.
That is the thing that absolutely enrages me. It's like, this is not a you problem. Mm-hmm. You're in a system that's designed to extract your money from you. And they're like, oh, well, that's your problem. You let us extract your money from you. What the fuck? Like, are these ads for, frictionless pay, as if that were a problem that needed solving. No, we need frictionless saving. We need frictionless,
Mm-hmm.
ethical investing. That's where I want less friction. No one
Mm-hmm.
asked for frictionless pay. I don't know, was it really a problem for people to take out their credit cards? Apparently that was a problem that now we really needed to tap our phones. I just don't see these as problems that needed solving. We need a little friction. And I talk about that, bringing in a little bit of natural friction, because I'm sorry, guys, we got to do it ourselves because the system won't bring that friction in. It's not in their best interest to do that. And why, in my world, personal finance, but I think also just becoming a more whole person is an act of rebellion, especially right now. It's such an act of rebellion to experience the wholeness that we all inherently have.
Yeah.
And we get it through, through genuine connection. We get it through tending our attention garden, which I would love to talk about as well. It's an act of, there's a little bit of going against the grain. There's an experience of that. I think at the beginning, the little record scratch. And one question I love asking my clients is, tell me about a time where you rebelled against something. And whatever that story, that's the nugget that's the seed.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, to get better with money. And I think some people, I think I need to conform more. I need to be more mainstream. It's actually the opposite, because the conformity in the mainstream is going to have you spend everything. I would love to ask you about your attention garden, something you kind of, and I love you actually had a lovely little bookmark, 5 rules for gardening your attention, which I love this metaphor. I also want to say I've done a lesson about how to think about investing like gardening, because the metaphors really, really work there too. So
Yeah.
tell us about your attention garden. And I also love to know about your actual garden and how it's growing.
Yes, of course, gladly. Yeah. So what I've found, just broadly, whether we're talking about attention in social media or money or time, is that anywhere we are using an economic model, if we can shift to using an ecological model,
Yeah.
it often is exactly like the healing we need. Because within economics, at this point, there's always scarcity embedded there. Like economics in its original definition, I talk about this in the book, it wasn't about scarcity. But now it is often defined as the study of how scarce resources are distributed. So I think that economics has been co-opted by scarcity, or colonized by scarcity, we could say. So if you're using an economic model, you're using a scarcity framework or mindset. If we move to an ecological model, we can move into an abundance framework or mindset. And that is healing that we all need. And so that's the same move I try to make in the book, is to understand, okay, if attention is not an economic resource, what is it? It's expansive, it's generative, as I've already said. How do we understand it ecologically? And to do that, I talked about gardening, which is, the experience I have with nature and with trying to grow things and trying to shift my relationship to plants and the planet and myself, honestly, and other people. And so in the book, I offer 5 principles for gardening your attention, and they're really meant to pull us out of the mainstream, to invite us to notice where our attention is going, what's happening, and then to begin to shift it toward the things we actually want to tend to, the things that we care about, the things that we want more of in our life. And so I'll briefly just kind of mention the principles. The first principle of cultivating your attention garden is to explore what's already present. Because if you're gardening in the ground, in the earth, with plants, you begin with the soil that's there. You begin with the weather where you live. You begin with the current conditions. You have to notice. And I think every transformative practice begins with noticing. So if we're gardening, we're noticing. That's our first step. And when you think about that with your attention, it's noticing, what do you pay attention to? What do you not pay attention to? What do you wish you paid attention to? Where does that wish come from? How does your attention feel? How's your relationship to time feel? All of these things come up when we start to notice. Once we've noticed, we can begin to make changes. So principle 2 is start small, because for all the reasons we talked about around, my relationship to restriction, my relationship to rules. Like, I'm not here to offer anybody a detox strategy for their attention. Yeah. Like, that's not how I roll. So I'm not interested in telling you, like, throw your phone into the sea or like get rid of the internet in your house, right? Like, I'm not going to say that because that's not how change works for me. It's not all in one go. It's these small shifts that you make because you want to make them. So once you've noticed where your attention is going, with Start Small, I invite people to like carve out a pocket of attention that feels really good. And it may take some time to find it. Like for me, and it sounds like for you, Rachel, like reading was this for me. I love to read.
Yeah. It's like something I already know I love. Like I have a sense I love it. Another one that comes up a lot for clients is like hobbies they loved as a kid. That often comes up as part of their healing process. Like I love to color. I love to do collage. I love playing piano. And like it's often an old love. Like I'd love to bring that up. And that feels starting small because you've had some experience with it. And this made me laugh because you talk about radishes or your Start Small as well. And my dad was a home gardener as well. And he'd say, I always plant radishes because it makes me feel like a good gardener.
Yes, they always grow and they grow first. And so you're like, I already won the garden before we even really got started. So.
I have food to eat. It doesn't matter if you don't like radishes. There are radishes.
Yes, 100%. That I always start with radishes because they're so easy to grow from seed. They grow even when it's cold and weird and dreary outside. Yes, that is always my Start Small in the garden.
Your ego boost. Like you're getting there.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to emphasize this in the book too, is like some people I think, well, I'm sure people do this with money habits, but something I see with like social media habits is instead of starting with something that feels good, we start with something that we perceive as like our biggest bad habit. We go right to the hurt, right to the hardest thing. And I personally have found that just always like sets me up to abandon any attempt to change. I'm like, oh, it's going to be really hard and I'm not going to like it. I'm probably not going to stick with it. That's not going to be the first thing I stick with.
Yeah.
And so same with attention, like go towards something you enjoy and find some time for that. And I love that you're saying like people surface these hobbies from their childhood. I think that happens because when we're younger, we have a different relationship to time, which means we have a different relationship to attention. So we can bring that back into the present, right? Because when you're a child, your time has not yet been put on the factory clock the way it has for all of us who do wage labor. And so that's where we can begin to like reclaim our attention by reclaiming some time. But like start small. Don't start with the expectation of like, I'm only going to read books for 72 hours a week. Like start with like, I'm going to read a book for 7 minutes this week. Like that's beautiful, right? And then from there are a few other principles. Principle 3 is be intentional, then let go of control. You know, I'm sure you see this with money, but like trying to control it is often the fastest way for me to step into a perfectionist mindset, step into an all or nothing way of thinking or acting. But also with gardening, like you can't control the weather. Like you can't control the conditions. You can't control if the bugs show up. So we can set aside the time to nurture our attention, but also things are out of our control and it may not happen that day or that week or that year. So just inviting in more gentleness. Principle 4 is embrace biodiversity and seasonal rhythms. So often when people leave social media, it's something that took up a lot of their time. And they sometimes look to me and they're like, what do I do now, Amelia? And I'm like, literally anything you want. But also, you know, maybe try doing a bunch of different things because social media, I like to refer to it as like a monocrop for our attention. It's like one place we go and we may see different stuff there, but like they all take the same format, right? So memeified or it's all posts in the same size. So like it's very much just like training our attention to sort of get sucked into this one mode. And if you're not looking at social media, like I probably wouldn't say like take all of that time and just go read really intense nonfiction books with it. Like go do a bunch of different stuff. Give yourself that pleasure.
You can watch movies. Like it doesn't have to be altruistic. I used to think of a professor who told me in grad school we were talking about self-care and I was like, I want to do yoga. And she was like, hang on, how about some suggestions for self-care that don't look like self-care? Like it doesn't have to be this. It's like you could stare at a wall, you could go on a walk, you could play video games. Like there are things you could replace it that don't like look perfect.
Yeah. And just embracing multiplicity and diversity in
Yeah.
that. So instead of just being like, I'm going to swap this one thing for this one thing, swapping this one thing for
Yeah.
a bunch of things and experimenting and seeing what you like and letting yourself, go in new directions. And then principle 5 is it's actually a big one. It's to linger with what's regenerative. So
Yeah.
in gardening, something that hopefully you're fortunate enough to learn is that there are plants that come back year after year. And in the book, I share this anecdote of planting iris bulbs with my dad when I was younger, and I hated it. I was like, these are ugly. They go in the ground. Nothing's happening. It's so much work. Doing yard work was like the bane of my 12-year-old existence. And so I was like delighted when the bulbs became flowers. And then I was like downright shocked when those flowers came back year after year and we didn't have to do anything else. And I think that gardening our attention can work this way as well because what we know about the brain and neural pathways is like we can build grooves that make it easier for us to pay attention to the things we want to pay attention to. It is a lot of work to get your brain out of the groove of picking up your phone and scrolling.
Totally. I mean, there's grief there, there's motor, there's like, oh, my thumb just goes there. Like, there's so much we've adjusted to with a high reward experience. So, yeah, when it comes to spending money, impulse spending, and social media, we're talking about high reward activity here. So this switch is going to be hard. Like, it's not going to be easy. But it won't always be hard.
Exactly.
There's a grief, there's a transition. And every no needs a yes. That's my mantra. Every no needs a yes. We actually don't remove anything. If we think about human behavior, there's no negative behavior. You're always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all actually about what you're saying yes to, not about what you're saying no to. And then you don't feel like I think that shifts the perspective of grief, loss, restriction. It's like, no, I'm actually saying yes to these things. And it does take some time. But your thumb won't, it's fine. You won't grab for your phone. You won't hear it ringing when it's not ringing. But it takes some time. And I think that's very real, that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. But just like you carved out that groove, that like turn to your phone, like you can create other neural pathways.
Yes.
You can build in new modes and new sort of vessels for your attention. And they can over time become as easy or innate or even natural to you as picking up your phone has become, right? You can pick up a book just the same way you pick up your phone if you let yourself shift your patterns or your habits or your desires. And again, that's why I think working toward pleasure is what we want to do here. It's much easier to change if you want the thing you're working toward than if you're trying to discipline yourself into it. This is true with money. This is true with food. This is true with social media. This is true with movement. This is true with like all of the different threads we've been weaving in here today. Like identifying something else that you want, in my experience, is the fastest way to actually make a change. Like picking a different yes is the path toward making these shifts. So instead of centering a new no or going from yes to no.
I could not agree more. I love that. Amelia, maybe we could end with, I'd love to know what is literally growing in your garden. I mean, we're in harvest season right now. We're in beautiful Virgo September season. And what are you harvesting literally?
Yes. Let me bring it back to the actual physical material garden you asked me about earlier. Yeah, so I live in Nebraska and I have some gorgeous raised beds in my backyard. I live in Lincoln, so I live in a city. I'm not like on a farm somewhere. As we record this, I'm looking out my window at this massive, indeterminate cherry tomato plant that we have grown that is so big because I failed to prune it in August when I was traveling. And right now it has a lot of green tomatoes on it because it got cold early this year. Like the weather really dipped in actually most parts of the US, I think. We got this sort of polar air coming down from Canada. And so my tomatoes did not all ripen. They grew on the vine, but because the plant's too big and the air's too cold, they didn't get ripe. So I'm looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of tiny green tomatoes that I'm going to pick and then ripen in the dark in my basement over the course of fall. We also have green beans going. We have parsley going. And I think I have just picked my final green pepper and potatoes, which are two other crops I tried out this year. So that's the garden right now.
Homegrown potatoes. You never think a potato has flavor until you eat one that's homegrown.
It's so true. And I truly, like, that was an experiment for me this year. I just got a bunch of grow bags and I cut apart potatoes that had like grown eyes in my cabinets and I put them in and I watered them and they did regrow. I think I can fine tune some things for more success, but it was a fun way of, sort of making something from not nothing, but like a discarded vegetable in my pantry, turning it into many, many more edible vegetables. So also, again, a lesson in regeneration and abundance.
Yes. As you said, I look out my window and we planted a few sunflowers last year and I had let them go to seed. And guess what? I got a front yard full of sunflowers that I didn't plant and they're so fun. I feel like we are solely supporting the bee and wasp population of the neighborhood. And I love it. And I didn't do anything. I probably should have thinned them out a little bit. They're like trees. But it's been so fun and I feel a little subversive.
I love it. I love a sunflower. They are subversive. They are so tall. They are doing their thing. And they make like wonderful seeds you can eat. At least some varieties do. So
you have to say, these are like super tiny. I don't think you can, they're the little guys.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, okay, so you guys... So Amelia's book is coming out this fall, and you just go to, so easy to remember, yourattentionissacred.com, where you can either get on the wait list or purchase it, depending what time you hear this. And you guys, it is, look at this, it's a manifesto. It is all of how many pages, Amelia? 100 pages, like 100, y'all.
Yeah.
Dude, like a couple sittings I got this done, and it's one of my best reads. And I mean, get out your highlighter. I think I underlined every other line in this book. So I think I would love it even if I didn't know you, but because I know you, I loved it even more. And I loved hearing your voice read it to me. And I think there is going to be an audiobook as well. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, there will be an audiobook available. You'll have to buy it from my website. You can't get it from Audible or anything.
Gotcha. All right. So everyone, this is the stocking stuffer of the year. Well, Amelia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I look forward to all of the content and guidance that you give all of us navigating this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm so grateful to be in conversation with you and to also receive your money healing wisdom always. So thank you.
Any day, any old day. Thanks, Amelia. Your homework is to think about what is your relationship with social media right now. What is it giving you? What is it taking away from you? And what would you like to move towards more often? Would you like to read more, garden more, walk more, pet your cat more? Who knows? What do you want to do more of that social media might be getting in the way of? Do you want to try a little experiment? You are not alone in that being both daunting and maybe exciting. I'd love to hear your story. Head on over to moneyhealingclub.com/podcast where you can leave me a voicemail. You don't have to ask a question. I just want to hear your story. Are you a person who has left social media? I would love to hear what were the ins and outs of that. What were some surprising benefits? What were some surprising pain points and costs of it? Regardless, I really think that Amelia's book is a book for our ages. I strongly recommend it. It is so well written. It is such a good read. It's one that I very truly will read again and again and again. So let me know, are you going to change your relationship with social media? You don't have to. This is just an invitation to give it a try if you like to. Subscribe to the podcast so you get all future episodes. I'll see you next time.